Hello, everyone. Good morning. Sorry we had to wait for about 40 minutes. My name is Fumi, and welcome everyone to this online session on improving communication and handling emotional challenges in the workplace with Professor Olatunji Ogunyemi. Professor Olatunji Ogunyemi is a professor of journalism at the School of Film, Media, and Journalism, University of Lincoln, the United Kingdom, sorry. His research interest is in diaspora journalism and journalism trauma. He has a PhD, he had his PhD in Moscow since 1995. He is the founder of International Multidisciplinary Journalism Education and Trauma Research called JETREG. And then he's also the founder of Media of Diaspora Research Group. He's an adjunct professor in the Department of Mass Communication at Bowen University in Nigeria. Professor Ogunyemi is a member of AHRC, Arts and Humanity Research Council. He does peer review to ensure highest quality research proposals. So when you have, and then he's, to ensure highest quality research and proposal so that we can have robust and transparent decision-making processes when we send in articles. He's a senior academic mentor in the College of Mentors at the Council for the Development of Social Counsel in Africa, Codestria. He's working to strengthen capacity in teaching, research, and mentoring in the social sciences and humanities in the African universities. Ogunyemi regularly publishes in journals and chapters in edited books. He is a founder and principal editor of an academic journal, Global Diaspora and Media. He has received many awards and grants. So I'm going to open the floor to Professor Ogunyemi to address us. And then after, we're going to have question and answer time. Welcome, Professor Ogunyemi. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be able to be on this platform with you. Thank God to technology. I would have loved to come down to Brazil. So thanks to CIMED for all they are doing. And it's, as I said, it's good to rub minds with colleagues like yourself and to learn from one another. So what I'm going to say today is just, it's not to tell you what to do and how to do things, is to begin to open our minds to the way in which, as researchers, we are affected by the issues or objects that we cover. Okay? Most of the time, we haven't paid so much attention to that for many years and decades. People don't even recognize that we are impacted by the stories. We just think of ourselves as doing research, publishing, and then getting promotion or accolades over that. But we are also inadvertently damaging our emotional and psychological well-being. So this is just the beginning of the discussion, okay? So what I'm going to do here is just to give you a sort of a summary of what it means. So my objectives are threefold. So we want us to understand the concept of emotional literacy, what we understand by that. Then we also want to explore emotions induced by research and the effects on us. Then I'll give a review of literature on the emotional toll of research, something that's been done on, just raising awareness about the impact of our research on us. So that's the objective. Okay. So I'm also taking a sort of a psychosocial approach, which recognizes that individuals are different because, again, people can be exposed to the same kind of trauma or stories, traumatic stories, but they respond differently, okay? So there's no one size fits all in this matter. So it is also an experiential approach, according to Jude, which takes account of affective behaviors that can become deeply ingrained and then semi-automatic in the course of a career. So that's the way in which you experience is through your own attitude and the way you respond to issues. So for this reason, it is important to recognize the need for a diversity of coping strategies. So because people are so different, resilience is also very different in the way people respond. We need to know that there are different ways in which people attend and cope with exposure to traumatic events. I hope I'm setting the scene properly for you. Now, many of us, we work in the field, and field work is not fun, okay? We conduct research that breaks our hearts. Researchers, we meet people worldwide who suffer, who are traumatized. Some people have had to flee their country. They've been tortured. They work in unimaginable precarious conditions. I started, looking into diaspora journalism in early 2000, and most of the diaspora journalists that I was talking to have been affected, traumatized. But because I wasn't a psychologist, it didn't even occur to me to look into that area. I was just talking to them in their capacity as journalists in diaspora. But they keep telling me about their traumatic experiences. And that's what has led me into looking at, trauma in journalism and recognizing that we are not even equipping our own students to know how to cope with, exposure to traumatic events. So researchers too are in that scenario. We train people, we supervise them to have their PhD, but we don't actually talk to them about the trauma of the work and how they're going to cope with it. So due to our physical and emotional environments, we are in a highly emotionally charged fields of research, okay? And we face various challenges, okay? Our research requires making the vulnerable known, yet we lack the language and the genre to articulate what happens when we work, you see? So talking about it too can be a problem, because how do you talk about it? When we talk about race and gender and things like that, when you feel somebody has been racist toward you, you feel the effect of it emotionally and psychologically, but you may not have the language and the genre to articulate what you are feeling, you see, and that's also very frustrating. So what is emotions then? Okay, because we need to understand that. So if you say we are responding emotionally to something, you also need to understand. So this is quoting from Ekman and Futroso. So they say emotions regulate the way we think. And that's why sometimes when people are responding quickly, they're not thinking right, okay? And they may do certain things that they will come back to regret. So emotion manifests themselves in memories, images, and expectations. So people remember what's been done before and how they coped and things like that. So this process of regulating one's own emotions or those of others encompasses 5 main strategies. The number one is modification of the situation. So if you are in that environment, you can actually modify that situation, change it somehow. Or it could be deployment of attention. So you may pay attention to certain things, what we call selective attention, selective retention. Or you could have a cognitive change, just like most journalists, the way they cope with that, it comes with the job, Or you could have emotional boundaries and keep, say, okay, I won't go beyond this level and things like that. Or you can have response modeling, where you already have a particular way of responding to certain things as you go along. So if you want to read more about that, that's Harvey and Tuck in 2011. So in terms of what we do as researchers, we are engaged in what is called emotional labor, okay? And emotional labor, it's a psychological concept that refers to efforts that workers exert when they manage emotions that arise in relation to their work, okay? So most of the time, even ordinary mundane things like responding to emails, students' complaints, and all sorts of things, they are part of the thing that take a lot of way of managing your emotions about that. So Orchard in 1983 also posted that professions have a set of feeling rules. So most people know how to cope. If you look at, doctors, nurses, and things like that, when they are in the, A&E, emergency and accident and emergency, there's a particular way in which they cope with what is going on. Okay, they have these feeling rules. But if you don't belong to that profession, you may get in there and probably just, all over the place. You may collapse and do all sort of things. So, and in academia too, we have a particular way in which we expect you to carry yourself, what we call acceptable emotions and things like that, and then just do your work professionally. So those are some things that can exert, a lot of emotional labor. There are many topics that we actually engage, in that actually can raise emotions, can have implications for our emotion. Many of us are studying conflict, war, terrorism. We write about them. You have to watch a lot of videos and materials and read this and that. That can be traumatizing. And we don't even think about it. We just think, oh, we want to write about it and publish. It can have, emotional toll on you. What about natural disasters? Many of us are talking about climate change and all sorts of things like that. If you've been involved in serious issues that like happened in America recently, and also in Cuba, and then you are interviewing people who have been involved in that sort of things like that, you may encounter what we call secondary trauma because of what they are telling you. So you need to prepare yourself how you want to cope with that. What about health communications epidemics like COVID-19? Many people wrote about COVID-19 and things that I said when they are writing it from the perspective of minority, people, especially in the UK here, they became traumatized because they could see, because many of these minority people are working in the forefront of, providing services, and many of them were actually affected by the epidemics. Financial crisis, okay. In 2007, there was a breakdown, financial meltdown, people lost money, and we still have the ripple effect of it now. So all of those things can also exert, pressure on you. Online trolling and abuse, nowadays we are also asked to promote our work online. So you send it on social media, you talk about us, and people can, even without reading your work, they just read the abstract, they may start trolling and abusing you or something like that, saying what. So that can also have effect on you. Domestic abuse, if you write on such issues, family violence, again, can have impact on you. What about ethical issues? You may be writing about political corruption, and all sorts of things like that, and it will have impact on you. Censorship policies, they can censor you from writing on certain things, or you may not be able to get access to certain materials as a result of that. Those sort of things can also have impact. So if you have students who are doing any of these topics, you need to be able to sensitize them to the fact that they may end up getting affected by what they are doing. There are other stressors, of course, work overload. So if you don't, if you have too many things that you are doing at the same time, it can cause all sort of breakdowns. Then work-life balance, again, for many researchers, because we bring our work home, so there's nothing like switching off, like some other people in other professions will do. So you come back home, you may wake up in the middle of the night, you remember something, you write it down. All those things can cause stress for you. Job security or insecurity can be a problem, especially now with the issues with the higher education, it's contracting and many people are losing their jobs, especially in the UK here. So it can put a lot of pressure on people and on you as a researcher. What about career advancement? How do you advance yourself? From being assistant professor to associate, from associate to full professor, it can, it's not a straight line sort of thing that I may think, oh, I understand how to maneuver my way, but then you may find yourself in an environment that is so toxic. So if you're a minority staff, you know, and you don't have mentors, you don't have guidance, you know, so you don't even know where you stand, and that can cause a lot of pressure on you. Lack of control, you may feel that you don't have control on what is happening around you, you know, types of what you are doing and how you are doing it. Then there could be lack of resources, because you need resources to be able to carry out certain, research, go to the field. And nowadays, you know, there's not enough money, even within the university, to send you on to go and attend conferences. Whereas before, they just give you a pot of money and say, okay, this is for this and that. You can control that. The lack of communication, that, you know, between you and your colleagues, between you and your bosses, and, you know, all sort of things can happen along the way. Or even with your subject, the subject of your study, getting the right communication from them can be very frustrating. So all of these things can add to the burden that you carry. So what are the types of emotional reactions that we find? Fear. And many of us, we have low-level fear about, oh, I don't know whether what I'm doing is is publishable. Is it good enough? Do I have enough material? You fret over all of these things, and they can have their toll on you. Anxiety, and I'm sure many of you will recognize that, you know, a lot of anxiety, you know, is one thing to do the research, it's another thing to write it. When you send it for review, especially to journals, you have anxiety about whether it's going to be accepted. What are the reviewers going to say? Sometimes the reviewers will say certain things. You'll be looking at it. Have they read the script actually? Because they are telling you certain things that you say you can't even recognize. And you cannot tell them that, sorry, what you said was rubbish. You know, you just have to respond to it. Stress. Stress, you can be very stressed in what you do and things like that. And that can be very problematic, you know. So how you respond to that is also very way of coping. Burnout, many people just have seen many colleagues after 20 years in academia, they just say, look, I've had enough. And then they just resign. Or some people just move to another country and say, look, I know of somebody who worked in a particular university, I won't mention names, for 19 years without promotion. Can you imagine giving 19 years of your life? And then they just said, look, it's enough. And they just left. See, helplessness can also happen where you don't know where you stand, who is going to help you, and things like that. And then people go through mental health breakdowns, you know. Nowadays, people are talking more about it, so you can be able to find support. But in the past, it's something that you keep secret, you don't want to say. Some people go into depression, using antidepressant. What about anger outbursts? You don't even know where this is coming from. Suddenly you say you are not that kind of a person, and suddenly you are now there. And that can be very, very, traumatic. And poor self-esteem. You just feel as if you are incapable of doing your work and trusting your work and things like that. You know, so all of these things can be one of the reactions that you may find happening. And if you're feeling any of this, then know that there's something going on in terms of the work and the type of work that you are doing, and you need to speak out, seek support, otherwise you'll be bottling it up and then it can, go pear-shaped. So what are the coping skills? First thing you need to have is what we call emotional intelligence, okay, which is the ability to recognize and effectively manage work-based emotional situations. This is Sumun Jack in 2023 from our research. So many of us take it for granted. Say, oh, well, I'm emotionally intelligent enough, but in actual fact, you have to be deliberate about it, okay? You have to make sure that you are doing it in the proper way, in a way that it helps you to be very sound and be able to do your work. So resilience also falls into that bracket. Then this is the key personal resources that workers need to effectively cope with the difficulties they face in work. So we are more resilient than each other because all sort of other things can work in your favor in terms of resilience. So resilience is defined as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or even significant sources of risk. And that's quoting Pearson et al. 2019. So we need, every one of us has got some, kind of iota of resilience in us, but it can be boosted. You can be deliberate about it and make sure that, you are able to step out of situations to be able to have come back to your normal self and then continue again. Because some of the job that we do, we will continue to do them, but we just need to be aware. So the purpose of this lecture is to raise awareness about some of the impact. And some of us, we have not even attached what is going on through us, what's going on within us to what we actually do. We think something happened from outside or it's our makeup. No, if you look at it, if for instance, before you started walking, you didn't have high blood pressure. Then 10, 15 years into walking, of course, age too can affect you. You start having all sort of reaction. I think, is it as a result of the anxiety that I've been having and all sorts of things like that? So all of these things can also add up to the problem that we have emotionally. So there are other types of coping mechanism that has been identified. Avoidance strategies. So some people are just try to avoid. So you will find some colleagues in academia who have not published in the past 5, 10 years because it gives them anxiety. The thought of, okay, I have to do research and publish can be very strenuous for them. So they kind of run away from it and just, do teaching and things like that. So, but because they don't have anybody to talk to about it, it becomes an issue and a big problem. What about unconscious affective behaviors that focus on avoidance and can be linked to the occupational ideology of journalism as well and what you do? So there are certain things that you just do unconsciously, okay? And that's another thing that people do. They can be drinking excessively without even realizing that that's, it's as a result of their work or, having some kind of habits that, you just do, snapping and all sorts of things like that. So you need to be able to understand what's happening and analyzing it. What about thought adaptive strategies designed to build emotional intelligence and resilience so people can teach you? And that's, again, coming from this, our discussion, you can be able to be deliberate about it and say, okay, this is how to go about it. And this is what I want to do, and then you know that you are looking after yourself, what we call self-care, which we're still going to talk about here. Then there's specific strategies for specific risks. For example, the handling of traumatic imagery. Many of us, we have to, maybe we analyze images on social media, newspapers, television, and all sorts of things like that. They can be very, very traumatic, because you are looking at, reams and reams and reams of materials, So you may think, oh, well, it's not going to affect me, I'm stoic, but they do, and people find it difficult to sleep or, to do mundane things and things like that. So it's very, very important to know what to do when it comes to certain things, so that's that situation that triggers some kind of emotional reaction in you. This is one thing I will not advise you to do. Some people adopt adaptive coping strategies, or what we call negative coping strategies. They start using drugs, okay, so that, they can tell, well, they want to be high so that they forget about their thing. So it's like antidepressants people are using, even though it's not recommended by the doctors, they cannot be using it illegally. Alcohol, people don't realize it. Alcohol is like antidepressant too. If before you've been consuming a glass of alcohol, and now you find yourself finishing a whole bottle, in a day or in one sitting, then there's something actually going on. Smoking, some people don't smoke before, and then suddenly they start smoking. again, it can be very, very problematic for them in this way. So self-criticism or self-blame can be an issue, so you can be very critical of yourself, blaming yourself for certain things that is happening and things like that. So we need to be able to know that these are some of the coping strategies that are negative. So we don't want that to occur. So, but this is the kind of positive coping strategies that we want to recommend, okay? First, we have to recognize that we have to be there for each other, okay? And then make sure that we have the support. So working in collaboration with your colleagues, having safety nets, making sure that your head of school or dean, they understand what is going on, and then you are able to talk to them about issues. They do help. So you need that very well, and you have to work on that. You can see Missouri School of Journalism Graduate School came up with some kind of guidelines in that area. So peer support is very important. Again, doing collaborative work can help you. So you are sharing the load, in that sense. You are not the only one just knocking your head about. And then talking about what you are doing too can be therapeutic, and that can help you. Relaxation can be a very good thing, and you can relax and do your work and do your work there in that way. Then relaxation, you can relax. Most of the time, many of us don't take time off work. We just think, oh, you just get on so that we can finish what we are doing, in a timely manner. But you need to space yourself out and find what works for you, and then be able to have this work-life balance. What about physical exercise? That's also very recommended. So you have to do physical exercise regularly, and that helps you. It helps your emotions. It helps your psychological well-being. Social support is also very important. You need social support, within the academia, outside of the academia. If you have a supportive family, that's very helpful, and then you can always be able to switch off and manage your emotions properly. The management support, that's coming from your boss, because if you have, people around you, who are not thinking about your sort of, that it can be very problematic. Then mindfulness-based meditation and other initiatives. Give me 2 seconds. I need to pop into the
Olá, todo mundo. A gente pode estar falando, or we can talk about what are the challenges of researching until he comes back. Does anybody have anything to say from what he has presented so far, so we can engage ourselves? Hello? Hello, everyone? Fernando, Sarah?
Estou ouvindo, professora.
Bom dia. Oi, Fernando. Eu sou Fumi, eu estou pensando, será que a gente pode, o que você tem para contribuir, que ele já falou até agora? Podemos conversar, né?
Sim, nós falamos em português ou...
Whichever one, qualquer que você está mais confortável. Pode ser.
Não, Só queria agradecer pela apresentação, não tenho nenhuma dúvida, gostei bastante. E agradecer ao professor Olatunji pela apresentação.
Ah, tá. Obrigadão. Ele ainda tem outro lado, né? Só pensar que o que para a gente pensar, você pode falar de você que você faz, os desafios que tem no acadêmico, pode ser? Ah, ele já voltou, depois nós vamos, tem o tempo, tá? I was trying to engage them while you were off, but
Thank
you
you.
can go on. Then after we have question and answers.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, so we've looked at coping strategies. One thing I want you to think about as I'm talking to you now, let me go back to one particular slide, Now, I want you to look at this slide. We'll come back to it again in question time. And I want you to rank the emotional reactions here, the way you feel it has affected you. So your top one may be anxiety, okay? So rank them and see, how you think it has affected, people, which one is low, which one. And I want to be able to see which one is the top one, top three for most people, okay? Want to see the top three for most people. So have a look at that. You can snap it, and then so that you can see, because I'm going to be completing my, something, and then we come back to it. You can also post it on the, whatever you get, the top three for you, you can put it in the chat. I think people can put something in the chat, yeah? So you can put it in the chat for us to be able to have a look at it later, okay? So thank you for that. So let's now move back to the lecture itself. Now, so case study now. So what I want to do now is to look at the kind of studies that have been conducted with researchers, talking to them about, these issues and what they found.
Excuse me. Could you please return to that slide with the
Okay.
emotions, because I could
Okay.
not see all.
Okay. Let me go back to this one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll give people maybe 2 or 3 minutes to have a look at it. And then what I want you to do is to rank them, okay? So I want to know the top 3 for you, and then we'll see across the board. Yep. Okay. We'll come back to it again towards the end. Okay. Thank you. Now, so about this case study. So this is an interesting case study, that was conducted looking at how COVID-19 affected mental health of university faculty. This was done in America, so they call it faculty, and influenced recruitment and retention efforts, okay? So what they did was to survey 114 faculty members in the School of Psychology training programs, okay? So, and then they now found something. They said senior faculty members at the highest salary level, were less likely to report psychopathology, okay? So what you are seeing here is that people who earn more money, okay, have less, report of psychopathology. Now, faculty who spend more of their professional time in research activities and less time in teaching activities, we are more likely to experience positive mental health, which is quite interesting because we find that this is COVID-19. It has disrupted the way we do things. So they found that researchers, tutors or lecturers who were involved in teaching activities were more stressed. Okay, but those who were in research activities, because it gives them more time to do their research, and even though they are not able to go out on things like that, they are less likely to have that kind of something like that. And I can resonate with that because before COVID-19, I hardly go to work every day. I only go to work when I need to teach. So staying at home and working from home was something that I was already used to. So, but when they said clamp down, it was just, well, yeah, So, but many people who have to go out on a daily basis, they found it very difficult and things like that. So this resonates very well with me. Then they said faculty members who are engaged in more frequent self-care and worked at institutions where they perceive to be supportive of their health were also more likely to experience positive mental health. So what you are finding here is that, okay, even though there's a lot of work going on, but people feel that they are in a supportive environment. You see, perception matters. Perception matters. Even if something is wrong with you, but you feel that, okay, you are being looked after, somebody is there, then you are more likely to have positive mental health, attitude. So regarding recruitment, they're now looking at how graduates of training programs, tend to see academic positions as undesirable, which is quite, an alarming thing that many young graduates do not want to take after their tutors. They don't want to do because they see it as very stressful, okay? And then there's a lot of pressure to publish because we have in academia, we have a saying that publish or be damned. And so if you don't publish, you are in problem. And you just have to be constantly publishing at home. And now, even with the kind of quality of publication is what they are talking about, the quality and the impact. And that can put a lot of pressure on people, okay? Some people also feel that there's limited opportunity to engage in applied work with children and families because of the kind of, program that they run there. So that can have a negative, impact on the way people perceive what you do. So research on the mental health and well-being identify problems with emotional exhaustion. So people are just emotionally tired. A component of burnout, they can see that, which correlates with negative job satisfaction. Okay. So again, if you ask many people, are they satisfied with their job and things like that, you find that, they have this negative, job satisfaction. Intentions to leave the field, and negative emotional experiences. They did a research in the UK looking at how many people are thinking of living in the next 5 years. And more than 50% of academics are thinking of living in the next 5 years. And that's going to be a big disaster because we're going to replace them. You're talking of experience now and things like that. So retention can be a big problem, and it can be related to work-related stress factors because of the pressure to do many things and things like that. So, and that can be very problematic. That's what we are finding out in this particular research. You can replicate this study in Brazil, where you are there, even just within your university, and find out exactly how people respond to that, to issues around it. Self-care. So self-care is an important point that I said we should also discuss about. Many people we don't use that word most of the time and say, oh, I need to look after myself, but it's now becoming very popular. It's becoming something that people talk about. So, but it's not yet a universally agreed upon definition among scholars, okay? But what is common is that, it involves the intentional application of strategies. And that's what I want you to identify, intentional, okay? You have to actually focus on it for wellness, promotion, and stress relief, okay? So you need to do it, and then in a professional, to enhance your professional effectiveness and prevent burnout. That is the main purpose of it. So if you have colleagues who are always taking time off work and things like that, it may be stress related, So But once you are intentional about it, you look after yourself and you'll be fine. So self-care has been conceptualized as multidimensional. It includes both application of strategies in a professional setting, for example, seeking professional support from colleagues, avoiding professional isolation, because in our kind of work, you can be very, very isolated. You know, except when, and you should always look after our PhD students. They can be really, really isolated. You know, we forget about them most of the time. Engaging in professional development is also very, very helpful so that you are able to advance yourself. So as well as engagement in activities promoting personal well-being, like taking breaks. Many of us, we can sit down for hours, 2-3 hours in front of our computer without taking a break. And some of us, we won't eat in front of the computer. Sleep on. And that's not good. You may think, oh, I have to finish this job. I have to do this. But you are damaging yourself. Sleep on. So you need to have self-care, and we need to encourage self-care. Engaging in enjoyable activities. Okay, so you have to make sure that what you are doing, you enjoy it. The topic that you research on, make sure you enjoy it. When I started diaspora journalism, people were asking, why do you bother about diaspora? But I said to myself, I said, look, now I can't be studying Africa from outside of Africa. That's my own perception. People do it, okay? But I feel that you're going to lose some nuances. You know, I've not lived in Nigeria for almost 40 years. Even when they mention some names now, I cannot, you know, kind of understand some nuances relating to that name and where they're coming from. And so just reading it in the newspapers and then analyzing what they are doing, to me, you are not doing a service to scholarship. So, and I said to myself, you know, and this was 1997, 1998, thinking about it, I said, the technology is developing very fast. I was just projecting then. Technology is developing very fast. I said it will soon become affordable for diaspora to be able to have their own television, to have their own radio station. At that point, they were already having their newspapers, you know, and that was what happened. See the point. There's now explosion of materials. And I said, who is going to be studying them? That's how I came into it. I said, diaspora media. I want to be looking at that and then be looking at how people in the diaspora engage with their media and use it for self-articulation and expression. And that's how it all started. Of course, many people thought it hasn't got any mileage, but now people are having PhD in diaspora, media and things like that, and looking at different aspects of diaspora engagement with social media, internet, and things like that. And then now, where we are now, talk about AI. AI is also going to change a lot of things. You know what I mean? And it's going to impact on us as researchers, how we research. It's going to impact on our students too, how they do things. We have to think, be innovative about, the assignment we give to our students, because AI can do the assignment for them and you wouldn't be any wiser. So how do you know that they've done it? We have to be clever. We have to do different ways of doing it. And that can put a lot of stress on you, just thinking about it, okay? So make sure you are very intentional about self-care. Spending time with friends and families is also very helpful. So application of self-care strategy has been found to reduce burnout. So that's the purpose of it. You don't want to burn out, and think, you are not deriving joy from your work anymore. Enhance well-being and life satisfaction, reduce physical symptoms associated with stress. It can enhance your job satisfaction and reduce personal impairment. So this is a big thing. We need to carefully promote self-care, in our environment. So talk about it to your colleagues and with your boss and everybody, so that we actually look after one another and after ourselves. And of course, our students too, we owe it to our students too, to make sure that they are equipped to be able to cope with the stress of the work that they are doing. So institutional support for mental health is very, very important. Okay, so employers, can do a lot of things, which may include promoting healthy lifestyles, prioritizing healthy habits and work boundaries, and modeling these behaviors by supervisors. So that can also come at that level. So self-care, you do it at your level, and then the institution can come in to be able to complement it. It is important for faculty to set norms for peers in terms of using self-care strategies, okay? So setting appropriate professional personal boundaries and thriving in both physical and mental health. All of those things can be very, very helpful to everyone around you, you know, it is well. There are many strategies which can promote scholarly work include course release credits, formal mentoring programs, okay, financial resources to attend professional conferences. And that can be very stressful because if you are not supported to do that, you don't have that exposure, you can network, you can do all sort of things that can be problematic. And assistance with collaborative scholarship opportunities. So all of these things can be done by your department and institution to support you. Otherwise, you find yourself having to knock your head against the wall and trying to do everything for yourself. So there's something they call the principles of trauma-informed care, which was designed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Trauma and Justice Strategic Initiative. So I just thought I'll use this one to end my discussion with you, but it talks about some key points. Safety. You have to think about safety first, okay? Safety at work, safety when you are out of work. When you go to the field, make sure that your students and yourself, you understand safety issue. So if you are covering conflict, so you have to be very sure that you can be safe. And even if you are just doing, court coverage, crime issues and things like that, safety also is very, very important. Social media, how do you use it, and things like that, and keep safe. Now we just heard that Australia is thinking of banning under 16 from using social media. It's a matter of safety. They are thinking about the safety of these young people, safety, which is to do with their mind. It first affects them, emotionally, and then to affect them, physically, because many of them are not even going out to play anymore. They are just online almost 24/7. They go to bed, they have their phone next to them. They wake up, it's with their phone. So trustworthiness and transparency is also another thing that, trauma-informed care system will have, so that you have people around you that you trust and you know that you are transparent. Peer support is very, very good, supporting one another in what you do. And this is part of our peer support when we have seminars like this and we talk to one another about research. Somebody makes a presentation, okay, we discuss that. It's a give and take sort of thing like that. So, I also learn from the process. You are also learning from what I'm doing. Collaboration and mutuality is very, very important. So this may lead to other things that may say, oh, well, I didn't know that we were doing this area. Let us collaborate. See? Empowerment, voice, and choice. Then cultural and historical and gender issues may come out of all of these things. And then, you'll be able to say, yeah, we understand where everybody is coming from, and then we can also support you in the way to help you cope with stress. So trauma-informed system will have all of this, okay? Understand the widespread impact of trauma, that it can impact you, whether you directly or indirectly, okay? It also has to recognize the signs and symptoms. Many of us don't know the signs and symptoms, and that's where the list that I said you should look at again, fears, anxiety, and others. Those are the signs and symptoms of trauma, okay? So you may not associate with them initially, but once you start looking at it, in a very, new light, you'll be able to see that this is part of the exposure to trauma. Fully integrate knowledge about trauma into procedures, policies, and practices. That is very, very important. And this is why our discussion today is also very important, because we have to be deliberate about how do we introduce, knowledge about trauma into what we do and policies and practices in our place of work. Then actively resist re-traumatization of those in the system. That's one thing you don't want to do. If someone is traumatized and you are talking to them, you can re-traumatize them, asking them to tell you exactly what happened to them. Can you imagine somebody who's been raped and you're writing about rape cases and all sorts of things like that, and tell them to recollect what happened to them? That can be traumatic for them. I remember, one of my colleagues, when I started looking into trauma in journalism, said to me that, look, Ola, this is an important point. I said, why did you say that? I said, well, there was a time he teaches documentary. Okay, most of the time in the classroom, they can ask students to watch films and also, and there was one particular Hollywood film that he asked students to watch so that they can analyze it. And that, particular, there was a scene of rape in that film. And one of the students actually ran out crying. So he went after the student and said, what happened? And that one said, why didn't you warn me? And they brought recollection to the student somehow, Stephen. So that's why we need to do trigger warning. If you're going to use any materials in the classroom, you don't want to traumatize your student. You don't know what their background is. You may think, oh, this is something that's already in the public domain. Let me just put it there to illustrate my point. But make sure that you prepare your students so that you are not re-traumatizing them in any way. So, and then the domain of trauma-informed system, according to Hansen and Lang, should be in 3 places: workforce and professional development. So it must be in there. Organizational change. So your organization should be ready to change the way they do things. Before COVID-19, very few employers will allow workers to work from home. But COVID-19 happened, and everybody now is more or less working from home. Even employers don't even want people to come back to work because they find that, okay, people actually work better when they're in their own familiar environment, see? So organizational change about trauma can also occur. What about practice change, the way we do things? Do we need to do something from 9 to 5:30, every day? No, we can do it in different ways, many ways in which can help people to actually cope and then be able to have, their emotional and psychological well-being protected. So those are some of the things that I want to talk to you about. And then I've given you some further readings if you're interested. There's a website for JETREC, that's Journalism Education and Trauma Research Group. That's the second one there. If you go on it, you will find a lot of materials under our publications, which you can also read and then use in your classrooms and things like that. So, and of course, you can join JETREC if you want to, because again, we want to make sure that we include trauma-informed literacy in the curricula so that students are well equipped to be able to cope with the pressures and the exposures to traumatizing events in their career. So that's what I've got to say to you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm open to your questions now. But let me see I gave you something to do, which is the hierarchy. I want you to. So I don't know whether we want to put it in the chat or somebody wants to talk about their own 3. So but I'll hand over to the moderator to let us know how this is going to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Ogunyemi. I know that people online, we were waiting. Professor Ogunyemi has actually told us about trauma in academic line. I know somehow when you came in, you were going to look for how to improve and handle emotional challenges in the workplace. Of course, in the academics, we go through various experiences that are charged with pressure, most especially social, economic, that are stressful. So he has opened our eyes to the need to actually be observant of traumatic situation that we can fall into. Professor Sarah has been able to, he's on the chart, her category of fear and anxiety. So you may want to talk a little bit about that. But Sarah and Fernando, can you introduce yourself so that we know and then we have a little feedback from you? Who is going to go? Sarah?
I can go first.
Okay,
First of all, First of all, I would like to thank the professor for all the talk that he brought. It's a very relevant and important theme to be discussed, and I would like to thank you very much. And also, if it's possible to share the presentation, because there are many studies that I would like to look further. Okay, this is a topic that I'm interested. So, in my I haven't introduced myself, but I'm not a professor. I've finished a master, but I'm not a professor, and but it's a topic that I think it's very important to discuss in workplace, and it's very common nowadays. It's very unfortunately, burnout, stress, and anxiety. Those are problems that are very common in our organizations. And for me, I in chat, I put fear, anxiety, and stress. But it's all like it's not very. I wouldn't say that it's in a. It's very how can I say, strong, or it's balanced. It's how can I say, it's equilibrado. It's not very it's functional. Okay, so there are some moments that I feel fear, but it's okay. It's not like that it stop me, or that I need any professional help. But I know that this is not that it's common, that people need help, and the organizations are not ready, are not prepared for that. I think that it would be interesting to have a specialized team, professions that are specialized in this team in the organization, to take care of these problems, to help to identify, and also help these workers that feels that way. So I think this is very important. Indeed, it's a team that it's a topic that need to be improved or paid more attention. That's it.
Thank you
You
so
know,
much, sir. Thank you.
should we wait for Fernando before you respond?
Yes, please.
Hello, Fernando. Hello, Fernando.
He has to unmute himself. Maybe he's talking.
He has spoken earlier. Fernando,
Okay. Now,
maybe you want to
one thing I
respond.
will say first is that, Sarah, a copy of this thing, has been emailed already. So, Fumi, please feel free to share with people who have come, and other people might want to have a look at it. As I said, it's a developing area. Okay. Of course, most of the time we associate some of this problem with people who are already so sick that they have to have professional help. But it's actually something that if we take care and look at our care and do it properly, we'll be able to manage our day-to-day activities very well. So when people, kind of categorize this thing, the top three for them, fear, anxiety, stress, you need to know what is triggering that thing, so that you have to trace it back. So what triggers that anxiety, or what triggers, so where do you find yourself that, suddenly I became a bit anxious? Or what activity do I want to do that I become anxious about? Then that's what you need to now be able to work on. How do you mitigate that? Okay. For those of us who are researchers, maybe that, okay, some people kind of find it very difficult to do a focus group discussion with a number of people, because they kind of feel that everybody's on them and things like that. So if you feel that, okay, and you need to get that qualitative material, but you can't do it, then outsource it. Find someone else to collect the data for you, and then you do the rest of it. So it's finding out exactly what it is. So don't avoid it, because This is something that will help you to advance your career, and you need the material, but you can actually outsource it to someone else to do part of that thing for you, and then you come. Don't feel that, oh, you are less professional by asking other people to collect data for you. And if it's about writing, some of us also fret about our writing. So most of you are who don't have English as your first language, and you want to publish in an English journal, okay? It can be a problem. So you send it to them, and then they are talking about it, the style and the articulation is not in the right place and things like that. And you become anxious about that. You become stressed about it. See the point? So, and that's why we have copy editing services. You can send it. I'm the founder and principal editor of Journal of Global Diaspora and Media. And I find people who send to me materials. What I look at is the knowledge base. Is the research there? Once the research is there, I say, fine. It's just about the style and articulation. Now, I will now advise the author. I say, okay, send it to a copy editing for secondary editing service, and then they'll polish it for you and then send it back. So that's fine. You've already, done the job. It's just that it is polishing. So that's some of the things that we need to look at to say, look, I need help. And many people don't know that's when taking so much time to seek help can be problematic. So you are extending that trauma, that anxiety, that stressor for a long period, and that can impact on your own emotional and physical health, and then it can lead to burnout eventually. So that's my response to that.
Thank you. We have just a few more minutes to go. But there is something I noted from the research by Day et al. Is like youngsters don't want to go into academics because of certain reasons. So I want to go back to Sarah because she said she just finished her research. Are you considering academics, Sarah? What do you think about the academia and trauma of researching and learning?
Yeah, in my case, it was a professional master. I don't know if you have this kind of thing, but it's I'm from an organization, and there was a group of workers from there that it was almost hired a university to do a group and to do this master. So it's academic, but it's a little bit different from people that lives on the academic environment. Do you know? It's a little bit different because we have the master, okay, but in a profession, very focused in studies developed in our organization. So it's more focused on our workplace. I would like to continue to study. I think I don't know much about this environment, the academic, and for me it's a new thing, and I know it's very for academic people who live from this, that do a lot of research and teach. This is very stress. It's people feels exhausted, and I hear that a lot. That is very there are many kinds of activities at the same time. So there is the problem of burnout and all the maybe toxic environment, and but I don't leave this very deep, do you know? I don't know if I'm eu não sei se eu estou sendo compreendida. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I think we do. But you said you have a special methodology in your organization. What is that methodology? Can you share that, or is it unprofessional?
No, I work in the customs here in Brazil. The tax,
Okay.
I'm a tax auditor,
Okay.
so it's very technical. But
Okay.
I did the master, professional master, and about human research in this organization. And but it was the first step for me in academic, do you know? So it's new. But I know in my study I did not focus on this mental health and all these problems, but I know that it's something that it's very important, and it's very I think also today I work in homework, is that what you call? So sometimes we feel very lonely, so it's a little bit of that emotion of helplessness. So because we feel even having all this technical and technological and tools and etc., but we feel very lonely because we work at home alone, you know. So think this is something that I think it's good to study how to get to feel engaged with the organization, and to be I don't know, to take care of this worker that is alone at home working, you know. That's
You're
it.
right. You want so you're right. This week, because it's been a week loaded with paper presentation, some people have presented papers on mental health and stress and burnout. Somebody presented on precariousness and precarity and the stress that accompanies so that kind of job, like the gig economy and uberization and stuff. And then there is organizational behavior such as psychological security. You know, and so people are getting to note more the importance of emotional well-being. And then, I mean, we need more researchers into that area, into like the professor had actually provoked. And again, students too, students having workloads and pressure of work and the impact of that on their psychological well-being, mental well-being. It's in progress, and I think, you know, we have to raise more consciousness, like Professor Ogunyemi and the trauma journalism are doing in the area of journalism, raising consciousness, being aware of things that were hidden before. Journalists will go and cover assignments, and then they will come out, you know, having mental trauma after covering the events. Not only that, it's been noted that people who cover the events too, the people you cover, the events, you know, it's all, so the world is open and there is a lot of research gaps in these areas. And most especially, you know, with students, how are they handling stress of work? You know, in Brazil, you have to work, you have to come to school, you've got to do your TCC. And so I think, yeah, that is, this is food for thoughts. I don't know if, Professor, you have something more to say, and then we can close.
What I just have to say is to encourage people not to suffer in silence, okay? Make sure you seek help early. Make sure that you look after yourself. Work-life balance is important, you know. Many of us, you know, have been teaching for almost 30 years. Some of us have been damaged along the way because we didn't pay attention to it. This sort of thing, it wasn't a language that were used in the 90s and 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s. You know, you just don't mention it. So it's very important for us to now begin to say, look, life first, okay? We have to, for you to be effective and productive, you need to be well. And that's what is important. And your boss needs to know that they need to support you to be well. That's the point. So, and it's a win-win scenario for everybody. You were not made for the job, okay? So don't die on it. And that's my last take on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being with you. And Sarah, thank you. You all have a lovely day. I don't know what time it is in the UK now.
Well, in the UK, it's 10 minutes to 3 o'clock.
Okay, still early evening. Thank you, Prof. And
Yes,
then thank you, Sarah.
Thank
Have
you.
a lovely day.
Yeah,
Bye for now. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for organizing this for me. I really appreciate it. So we'll be in touch again, yeah?
Okay, thank you.
God bless you. Okay.
I wonder why I have never published in your, I will talk about that later in the diaspora journal. But have a lovely evening.
There are some special issues out. If you go on the website, you will see some special issues which you can respond to.
Okay, okay then. Okay, thank you, Prof. Bye for now. Bye-bye.